A quiet life alone with a dog is becoming more attractive than my relationship. Last month I had a dream where I was living by myself in a cozy apartment with just a golden retriever, no one else to worry about, free to pursue my hobbies and travel wherever I wanted. When I woke up, the peace I felt was so real that it terrified me more than any nightmare ever could. My name is Dylan. I'm 31 years old, and I've been with my girlfriend Rachel for 3 years now. We've been living together for the past year, and the thing is, our relationship isn't necessarily bad. We get along well, we laugh together, we rarely fight, and we share plenty of interests. But that dream has been eating at me because it showed me something I didn't want to admit. I'm slowly losing the motivation to keep trying in this relationship. Rachel and I met at a farmer's market in Austin 3 years ago. I was buying fresh produce for the week, trying to stick to my new healthy eating routine, when she approached me at the tomato stand. She was 25 then, with this radiant energy that drew people in naturally. "Those heirloom tomatoes are amazing," she said, pointing to the ones I was examining. "I make this incredible caprese salad with them. Do you cook much?" We ended up walking around the market together for the next 2 hours. She was working as a social media coordinator for a local wellness center, and she had all these dreams about starting her own organic catering business. She talked passionately about traveling to Italy to learn authentic cooking techniques, maybe even opening a farm-to-table restaurant someday. "I want to create something meaningful, you know?" she said, as we sat on a bench sharing a bag of kettle corn. "Something that brings people together and makes them happy." I was completely smitten. Here was this beautiful, ambitious woman who seemed to have her life figured out, who had concrete dreams and the passion to pursue them. I was working as a software developer at a tech startup, making decent money but feeling like I was just going through the motions. Rachel made me want to dream bigger, to think about what I really wanted from life. Those first few months were incredible. We'd spend weekends exploring different neighborhoods in Austin, trying new restaurants, going to farmers markets together. She'd cook these elaborate meals for us, and I'd help by chopping vegetables and washing dishes. We'd talk for hours about our future plans, about the trips we wanted to take, the goals we wanted to achieve. "I'm going to start saving money to take that cooking class in Tuscany," she'd say, her eyes lighting up. "And you could come with me. We could explore all those little villages, taste real Italian wine." "That sounds perfect," I'd reply, already mentally calculating how much we'd need to save. "I could take some photography courses while we're there, maybe start building a portfolio." We complemented each other perfectly, or so I thought. I was the practical one, good with numbers and planning, while she was the creative dreamer who brought color into my structured world. When she mentioned wanting to move in together after 2 years, I was thrilled. It felt like the natural next step toward building something real together. But living together revealed things that weekend visits had hidden. The first sign of trouble came about 2 months after she moved into my apartment. I had created a budget spreadsheet for us, breaking down our shared expenses and individual savings goals. Rachel had mentioned wanting to start putting money aside for her culinary school dreams, so I included a line item for her career development fund. "This is great, Dylan," she said, glancing at the spreadsheet for maybe 30 seconds. "You're so good at this stuff. Should we set up automatic transfers?" I asked. "That way we're both consistently saving toward our goals." "Oh, definitely, I'll set that up tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. When I'd bring it up a week later, she'd say she forgot. 2 weeks later, she'd mention that her car needed an unexpected repair, so maybe we should wait another month. There was always something else, always a reason why this month wasn't the right time to start saving. Meanwhile, I was not only saving for my own goals, but also covering an increasingly larger share of our joint expenses. When we went out to dinner, I'd usually end up paying because she'd forgotten her wallet or her account was acting weird. When it came time to renew the lease on my apartment, she assured me she'd contribute more to rent since she was now officially living there. But her contributions remained inconsistent. "I'm sorry, babe," she'd say whenever money discussions came up. "Work has been so stressful lately. My boss is being impossible and I just can't think about budgets right now." I tried to be understanding. Everyone handles stress differently, and maybe financial planning just wasn't her strong suit. I could handle the practical stuff if she focused on her creative pursuits. That's what partnerships were about, right? Playing to each other's strengths. But months passed, and instead of seeing her channel that stress into action toward her dreams, I watched her settle into a routine of nothing. She'd come home from work, complain about her boss for 20 minutes, then spend the evening scrolling through social media or binge-watching Netflix shows. The cooking that had initially brought us together became less frequent. Those elaborate weekend meals turned into ordering takeout because she was too tired to cook. The farmer's market trip stopped because she preferred sleeping in on Saturday mornings. What happened to the catering business idea? I asked one evening as we sat on the couch, Chinese takeout containers between us. She sighed dramatically. It's just so overwhelming, you know. There's so much paperwork involved in starting a business. And the startup costs. I looked into it, and you need permits and licenses and insurance. It's like the system is designed to keep people from following their dreams. We could break it down into smaller steps, I suggested. Maybe start with a business plan, or look into taking a basic entrepreneurship class. Maybe, she said. But I could tell from her tone that she was already mentally changing the subject. Oh, did I tell you what happened at work today? Jennifer in accounting. And just like that, we'd moved on from her dreams to office gossip. This became a pattern. Whenever I'd try to discuss future plans or goals, she'd either deflect with work drama or become emotional about how stressed and overwhelmed she was. The turning point came about 6 months ago during a conversation about our lease renewal. Our landlord had offered us a chance to upgrade to a larger apartment in the same building for just $100 more per month. It had a second bedroom that could serve as an office space, something I'd been wanting since I'd started taking on more freelance projects. This could be perfect timing, I said, showing her the listing. You could use the extra room as a test kitchen for developing recipes. Maybe start doing some small catering gigs on the weekends. Instead of excitement, I saw something that looked almost like panic in her eyes. I don't know, Dylan. A bigger apartment means more responsibility. What if I can't handle it? What if the catering thing doesn't work out and we're stuck with higher rent? But we can afford it, I said, pulling out my phone to show her our budget. Look, I've been tracking our expenses for months. We're actually saving more money than we planned because I've been covering most of the shared costs. We have room in the budget. That's when she exploded. Not everything is about spreadsheets and budgets, she yelled, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. My job is killing me, my boss hates me, and now you want me to take on even more stress with some fantasy catering business that probably won't even work. I was stunned. This wasn't the Rachel I'd fallen in love with, the one who'd talked passionately about her dreams and ambitions. This was someone who seemed afraid of her own potential, who'd rather stay comfortable in complaint than uncomfortable in growth. I'm not trying to pressure you, I said quietly. I thought this was what you wanted. Well, maybe what I want has changed, she said, wiping her eyes. Maybe I just want to be happy with what we have instead of constantly trying to achieve more. But here's the thing, we weren't achieving more, we were achieving less. Since we'd moved in together, I felt like I was carrying the weight of two people's futures while she coasted along, content to let me handle all the difficult decisions and sacrifices. I started paying attention to the little things. When we'd make plans to go somewhere new, she'd inevitably find a reason to cancel. Too tired, too expensive, too crowded, too far away. When I'd suggest we take a weekend trip, something we used to do regularly, she'd say we couldn't afford it, even as I showed her we had the money specifically budgeted for recreation. Why do you always have to make everything so complicated? Became her standard response to any suggestion that required planning or effort. The most frustrating part was that I couldn't even have a rational conversation about it. Every time I tried to address the pattern I was seeing, she'd become emotional in a way that shut down any possibility of dialogue. You're being mean, she'd say, tears welling up. I work hard all day, and I come home to you criticizing everything I do. I'm not criticizing you, I'd try to explain. I'm just wondering what happened to the goals you used to talk about. Goals change, Dylan. People change. Why can't you just accept that? But the thing is, I wasn't sure she had changed. I was starting to think that maybe the ambitious, driven woman I'd fallen in love with had been an act, or maybe just a phase she'd grown out of once she found someone willing to take care of the difficult parts of life for her. The dream came 3 weeks after one of these conversations. In it, I was living alone in a small but comfortable apartment. Everything was exactly where I'd put it. I had a golden retriever named Cooper who greeted me enthusiastically when I came home from work, but who didn't need me to manage his emotions or make excuses for his lack of motivation. In the dream, I was planning a photography trip to New Zealand. I had the itinerary spread out on my kitchen table, passport ready, camera equipment organized. There were no complicated discussions about whether we could afford it, no tears about how overwhelming travel planning was, no last-minute cancellations because someone was too stressed. Just me, my dog, and the freedom to pursue the things that excited me. When I woke up, the peace I'd felt in that dream was so profound that it took me several minutes to remember where I was. Next to me, Rachel was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that I'd just experienced what felt like a glimpse into an alternate life. That's when it hit me. I was more excited about a fictional life in a dream than I was about my actual life with someone I supposedly loved. Over the next few weeks, I found myself thinking about that dream constantly. I'd be sitting at work, supposedly focused on code, but instead imagining what it would be like to come home to just a dog. No emotional exhaustion from managing someone else's feelings. No frustration from watching someone waste their potential. No resentment from carrying the full weight of our shared future. I started noticing couples around me differently. At the coffee shop, I'd see pairs deep in conversation about their plans. Both people equally engaged and excited. At work, I'd hear colleagues talk about adventures they'd taken with their partners, projects they'd collaborated on, goals they were working toward together. And I realized that's what I'd thought Rachel and I would become. Two people building something together, each contributing their strengths toward shared objectives. Instead, I felt like I was trying to build a life while someone else watched from the sidelines, occasionally complaining about how hard construction looked. The worst part was that Rachel seemed genuinely content with this arrangement. She'd come home from work, kiss me hello, ask what was for dinner, then settle in for an evening of entertainment. She wasn't unhappy. She just wasn't anything. She existed in this bubble where someone else handled the difficult decisions, and she got to enjoy the benefits without the effort. "I'm thinking about getting a dog," I mentioned one evening as we were watching TV. "Really?" she said, not looking away from the screen. "That's a lot of responsibility." "I know. I think I'm ready for it." "What about when we want to travel?" "Dogs make that complicated." "We don't travel," I said. "We could travel. Someday." "When?" She finally looked at me and I could see the familiar pattern starting. The slight frown that preceded the emotional shutdown. "Why are you being like this?" she asked. "I'm just saying dogs are a big commitment. It's not like you can just decide one day to get one." "Why not?" "I've been thinking about it for weeks. I've researched breeds, looked into training classes, found a good vet in the area." "Of course you have," she said, and there was something almost bitter in her tone. "You've probably made a spreadsheet about it too." "Actually, yes, I have." She rolled her eyes. "Everything doesn't need to be planned to death, Dylan. Some things you're supposed to just feel." "Oh, but that was exactly the problem. I was feeling something, and what I was feeling was trapped. Trapped by someone who seemed to think that adulting was optional as long as someone else was willing to handle it. That night I lay awake thinking about my parents. My dad had worked 2 jobs to put himself through night school so he could become an electrician. My mom had started a small bookkeeping business from our kitchen table that eventually grew into a successful firm with 6 employees. They'd built their life together through decades of small, consistent efforts toward shared goals. I couldn't imagine either of them accepting a partner who was content to coast while the other person did all the work of moving forward. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to have one more serious conversation with Rachel about our future. Not about specific goals or timelines, but about the fundamental question of whether she wanted to be someone who actively participated in building a life together. I waited until the weekend, when we were both relaxed and had plenty of time to talk without distractions. "Rachel," I said as we sat on the couch with our morning coffee, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about your answer." She immediately tensed up. "This sounds serious." "It is. Do you want to build a life with me? Not just exist in the same space, but actually work together toward things that matter to us?" "Of course I do," she said quickly. "Why would you even ask that?" "Because I feel like I'm the only one doing the building. I'm the one making the plans, managing the money, researching our options, making the difficult decisions. You're present, but you're not participating." "That's not fair," she said, and I could see tears starting to form. "I participate plenty. I contribute to this relationship." "How?" I asked. "I'm not trying to be mean. I genuinely want to understand. What are you contributing toward our future?" I make this place feel like home. I bring joy and spontaneity to your life. Not everything has to be about achieving goals and checking boxes." "You're right. Not everything has to be about goals. But some things do. Like having enough money to retire someday. Like deciding if we want kids. Like figuring out where we want to live long term. These aren't optional decisions, Rachel. Life is going to happen whether we plan for it or not. Why can't we just be happy with what we have right now?" And there it was. The fundamental difference between us that I'd been trying to ignore for months. She wanted to stay exactly where we were, forever, with me handling all the complicated parts of moving forward. I wanted a partner who was excited about what we could become together. "Because right now isn't sustainable," I said. "My lease is up in 3 months. My company is talking about layoffs. Your boss has been hinting about restructuring your department. We can't just ignore these things and hope they work themselves out. So what do you want me to do? She asked. And now she was crying in earnest. Quit my job and start a business I'm not even sure I want anymore? Pretend to be excited about budgets and 5-year plans just to make you happy? I want you to want something, I said. Anything. I want you to care about what happens next in your life. I care about us, she said. Isn't that enough? But the thing is, she didn't care about us. She cared about the comfort and security I provided. She cared about having someone to split rent with, someone to make the difficult decisions, someone to blame when things went wrong. That conversation ended like all the others, with her crying and me feeling like a monster for wanting my partner to be an active participant in our relationship. That night, I had the dream again. Same apartment, same dog, same sense of profound peace. But this time, when I woke up, I didn't feel scared. I felt hopeful. I started doing small things to test what single life might look like. I researched apartments in different neighborhoods just to see what was available. I looked into dog breeds that would fit my lifestyle. I planned a weekend hiking trip that I could take by myself if needed. And you know what? For the first time in months, I felt excited about something. I also started paying attention to how Rachel responded when I wasn't available for my usual role as the person who handled everything. When she mentioned being stressed about a project at work, instead of immediately offering solutions, I just listened and said, "That sounds tough. Aren't you going to help me figure out what to do?" She asked. "What do you think you should do?" I replied. "I don't know. That's why I'm telling you about it. But it's your job. You know the situation better than I do." She looked at me like I'd suggested she perform surgery. The idea that she might need to solve her own work problems seemed genuinely foreign to her. The same thing happened when she mentioned wanting to redecorate the bedroom. Instead of researching paint colors and furniture options like I usually would, I said, "That sounds like a fun project for you." "For me? I thought we could do it together. I'm happy to help, but it's your idea. What's your vision for how you want it to look?" "I don't know. I was hoping we could figure it out together." But figuring it out together in Rachel's language meant, you do the work and I'll give opinions about the results. 3 weeks ago, I made a decision that surprised even me. I went to an animal shelter not to adopt a dog, but just to volunteer for a few hours on the weekend. I told Rachel I was going to help out with some fundraising event planning, which was technically true. Walking those dogs, seeing their pure joy at getting attention and exercise, reminded me what it felt like to care for something that appreciated effort instead of taking it for granted. These animals didn't need me to manage their emotions or make excuses for their behavior. They just needed consistency, care, and someone who showed up. When I got home, Rachel was on the couch in the same position I'd left her 3 hours earlier. "How was the fundraiser?" she asked without looking up from her phone. "Good. I think I'm going to start volunteering there regularly." "That's nice," she said absently. "Can you grab me some water while you're up?" And there it was. Even after being gone for half the day doing something meaningful, she still saw me primarily as someone who fetched things for her. That's when I realized something that changed everything. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of wasting more years trying to build a life with someone who didn't want to build anything. The fear I'd been carrying about making a mistake, about ending up lonely and regretting leaving Rachel, started to seem less scary than the certainty of staying stagnant. Because that's what our relationship was. Stagnant. Not moving forward, not moving backward, just existing. I started imagining that dog again, but this time it wasn't just a fantasy. I researched local shelters, read about different breeds, even visited a few pet stores to get a sense of what supplies I'd need. And with each step of planning, I felt more energized than I had in months. Meanwhile, Rachel continued to exist in her bubble of minimal effort and maximum comfort. She'd occasionally ask why I seemed different lately, but when I'd try to explain that I was just exploring new interests, she'd nod and change the subject to something that had happened on Instagram. Last week, something happened that crystallized everything for me. My company announced a promotion opportunity, a chance to move into a senior developer role that came with significantly more money and the option to work remotely. It was exactly the kind of career advancement I'd been working toward for years. I was excited to tell Rachel about it, thinking that maybe this news would spark some enthusiasm about what this could mean for our future. More financial security, the possibility of relocating somewhere with a lower cost of living, the flexibility to travel more. "That's great, babe," she said when I shared the news. "More money is always good." "It's more than just money," I said. "This could change everything for us. I could work from anywhere, which means we could move somewhere cheaper and save even more. Or we could travel for extended periods. Or you could finally take some time to figure out what you really want to do career-wise without the pressure of needing your current income." I waited for her response, hoping to see some spark of excitement or curiosity about these possibilities. "That sounds complicated," she said. "I like our life here. I don't want to move. You don't even want to consider it? We could live by the ocean or in the mountains or near your sister in Colorado. My job is here. My friends are here. Why would I want to start over somewhere else? Because you hate your job. You complain about it constantly, and we barely see your friends anyway." "I don't hate my job," she said defensively. "It's just stressful sometimes." "Rachel, you've told me at least once a week for the past year that you want to quit. Wanting to quit and actually quitting are different things. At least I know what to expect here." And there it was. She preferred the comfort of predictable misery to the uncertainty of potential happiness. She'd rather complain about a situation than take steps to change it. That night, I looked up apartments in Denver, where my company had a smaller office and where the cost of living was lower. I imagined waking up with mountain views, taking weekend trips to ski resorts, maybe getting that dog and hiking with him in the foothills. Then I imagined trying to convince Rachel to make any of those changes, and I felt exhausted before I even started. The next morning, I called my mom. I don't usually burden her with relationship problems, but I needed perspective from someone who'd built a successful marriage and life partnership. "Mom," I said, "how did you and Dad decide on the big life changes? Like when you started your business or when you guys bought the house?" "Well," she said thoughtfully, "the big decisions were never really decisions at all. When one of us had an opportunity or an idea that excited us, the other person would get excited too. We'd start planning together immediately. Your father was more excited about my business than I was sometimes. What if one person was excited and the other person wasn't? That happened occasionally with smaller things. But for the big stuff? Honey, if your partner isn't excited about building a future with you, then you're not really partners. You're just two people who happen to live in the same place." After I hung up, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, letting that sink in. Rachel and I weren't partners. We were two people who happened to live in the same place, with me doing most of the work of maintaining that arrangement. When I got home, I found Rachel exactly where I'd expected to find her. On the couch, scrolling through her phone, a half-eaten bowl of cereal on the coffee table next to her. "How was your mom?" she asked without looking up. "Good. She and Dad are planning a trip to Ireland next spring." "That's nice." "They're both really excited about it. Dad's been researching castles they can visit, and Mom's been learning about Irish cooking." They're in their 60s and they're still making plans together, still getting excited about new experiences." "That's sweet," Rachel said, still focused on her phone. "Do you ever think about what we'll be like in 30 years? "Not really. That's so far away." "It's not that far away. And the decisions we make now determine what those years look like." Finally, she looked at me. "Why are you being so serious lately? You've been weird for weeks. I've been thinking about our future, about what we want and whether we're building toward it together. Can we not do this right now? I'm trying to relax." And that was it. That was the moment I realized I was done trying to convince someone to care about building a life with me. "I'm going to go for a walk," I said. "Okay," she replied, already back to scrolling. I walked for 2 hours that day, through neighborhoods I'd never explored, past parks where families were playing with their dogs, by cafes where couples were deep in animated conversations about things that clearly mattered to them. When I got home, Rachel was in the same spot, now watching Netflix. "Feel better?" she asked. "Actually, yes. That was 5 days ago. Since then, I've been living with a clarity that feels both liberating and heartbreaking. I love Rachel, but I'm not in love with the person she's become. Or maybe the person she's always been underneath the initial excitement of new relationship energy. I'm in love with potential that doesn't want to be realized. I'm trying to build a partnership with someone who wants to be a passenger in their own life. Yesterday, I went back to the animal shelter and spent 3 hours with a 2-year-old golden retriever mix named Charlie. He'd been returned twice by families who said he was too energetic and required too much attention. But when I sat with him, I saw a dog who was just excited about life, who wanted to explore and play and be part of adventures. As I was leaving, one of the volunteers said, "Charlie really responded to you. He's been waiting for someone who appreciates his enthusiasm instead of seeing it as a problem." Driving home, I realized that's exactly what I'd been doing with Rachel, seeing her lack of enthusiasm as a problem I needed to solve instead of accepting it as who she is. But more importantly, I realized I deserved someone who appreciated my enthusiasm instead of seeing it as pressure. When I walked into our apartment, Rachel was meal prepping for the week, something I'd been encouraging her to do for months as a way to save money and eat healthier. "Look at you being productive," I said, and I genuinely meant it as a compliment. "Don't sound so surprised. she replied. I do things. I know you do. I'm proud of you for meal prepping. It's not a big deal. I just got tired of spending money on lunch every day. Even this small step toward taking more responsibility for her life came with a defensive edge, as if my acknowledgement somehow diminished her accomplishment. That night, I had the dream again. But this time, it wasn't just about the apartment and the dog. I dreamed about calling my mom to tell her about a promotion I'd accepted, a trip I was planning, a project I was excited about. In the dream, I was talking to someone who understood that dreams require action, who celebrated effort as much as results. I woke up feeling more peaceful than I had in months. This morning, I made a decision. I'm going to have one final conversation with Rachel, not about specific changes I want to see, but about whether she's happy with who she is and whether she wants to grow alongside someone or continue existing in comfortable stagnation. And if her answer is that she's content with things exactly as they are, then I'm going to respect that choice and make my own. Because I realized something important. I'm not afraid of being alone anymore. I'm afraid of staying in a relationship that makes me feel more isolated than actual solitude would. The quiet life with a dog that I dreamed about isn't appealing because I don't want human connection. It's appealing because it represents freedom from the exhaustion of trying to motivate someone who doesn't want to be motivated. Freedom from the resentment of carrying responsibilities that should be shared. Freedom from the sadness of watching someone waste their potential while demanding that I be okay with it. If Rachel and I break up, will I miss her? Absolutely. Will I sometimes lie awake wondering if I made a mistake? Probably. But will I regret choosing a life where I can pursue growth, adventure, and partnership with someone who shares those values? I don't think so. Because here's what I've learned. Love isn't enough if it's not accompanied by mutual effort toward shared goals. Compatibility isn't enough if only one person is compatible with building a future together, and comfort isn't enough if it comes at the cost of growth and fulfillment. I'm 31 years old, and I still have time to find someone who gets excited about the same things I do, who sees challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles, who wants to build something beautiful together rather than just exist in something acceptable. Maybe that person is out there walking her own dog, having her own dreams about finding a partner who matches her energy and enthusiasm. Maybe she's also lying awake wondering if she should settle for comfortable or hold out for extraordinary. Or maybe, for now, it's just me and a future golden retriever named Charlie, figuring things out together. And honestly, that possibility doesn't scare me anymore. It excites me. Tonight, I'm going to have that conversation with Rachel. Not because I want her to change, but because I want us both to be honest about who we are and what we want. If she's truly happy being someone who prefers security over growth, routine over adventure, complaint over action, then she deserves to be with someone who appreciates those qualities, and I deserve to be with someone who appreciates mine. The dream of the quiet life alone isn't really about being alone. It's about being free to become the person I'm meant to be, with or without a partner who shares that journey. And for the first time in months, I'm not afraid of either possibility.